So, well, we did, so this isn't for you guys, this is for the people watching later on. So we did some scientific investigation and we confirmed without shadow of a doubt that we can give a test. When is it? Wednesday, December 4th? Awesome. Because December 2nd is my birthday anyway. You know? Yeah. I'm going to be 23. Dog years. So I'll send out an email just to make sure, everything's confirmed. So that means you guys have the break and then Monday we can kind of have another review just to make sure we're all on the same page and then exam on Wednesday. Well, I didn't mean any harm. It's just when I first saw that calendar, it's so, and again, I don't think online stuff. Um, so we'll make it work. All right. Let's get to the lecture for today, and hopefully we'll be done with this in about 30 minutes, and then we can open it up for questions, extra practice, or whatever you guys want to talk about. Okay. This is kind of the last piece of the puzzle that I'd like to put in to teach you guys about how muscles influence motion through contraction, and that's the simulation where you're not necessarily going slow and controlled with a resistance. Okay. So what I'd like for us to do, just thought experiments. I love thought experiments. A thought experiment is, what if I turned off all the muscles, what would happen? That's a thought experiment. You didn't have to conduct a scientific research project to do what would happen, right? So I have 5 possible outcomes. We're going to do frontal plane and we're going to do shoulder stuff. So all of these examples are going to be add and add. And we have, and I emphasize the AB and the ABs. Okay. Abductors, concentric, abductors, eccentric, adductors, concentric, adductors, eccentric. Those are like our options, right? And then we have a 5th option, which is like none. I don't need any muscles to do that. Okay. So the thought experiment we're going to start off with is imagine my arms are out and I turned off all of my shoulder abductors because my abductors are holding my arms in this position. I turned them off because I want to answer this question. How fast can planet Earth by itself adduct my shoulders? At what speed can gravity, right? So it's just, but visually, I'm just curious, how fast could it do? So I turn off all my muscles and gravity's like, that's what I got. And if you think about this, if something was traveling and there was no wind at all, and something was traveling, at 20 miles an hour, if there was a back wind, the wind would help it go a little faster. And I'm not saying it would be a lot, but a back wind would help it push it a little bit more, and a front wind would kind of slow it down. So for gravity to do this by itself, that's really the only force. Because if I tug just a little bit more, it would go faster than that. And if I tugged a little bit up here, it would go slower than that. Does that make sense? Just from a logical perspective. If I used any muscles, whether it's the adduction pullers or the abduction pullers, it would have to go at a different speed. Okay? So if gravity can give me this, what's my option if I was trying to adduct faster than what gravity can offer by itself? And again, I look at these things as elimination. I want to try to identify what it can't be so that I can better see what it can be. I know that abductors working concentrically, I'm going to see abduction. So I can eliminate, if I'm lowering my arms down, right? If I'm adducting, this can't do the job. Right? So let's scratch that off. If my abductors were working eccentrically, this adduction would have to be slower than what gravity can offer. It would have to be, because I have wind, like it's like running into the wind, right? This is what gravity can do. Abductors concentrically do this. Abductors eccentrically do this. Adductors eccentrically is going to do abduction. I can eliminate that one. So really the only option, if I was trying to adduct faster than what an external force can offer, is to pull on muscles and shorten them doing what they're trying to do in the same direction as gravity. It's like running with a back wind. It's two forces pulling on one rope with nothing pulling on the other side. Wouldn't that rope go fast? So if I'm here and I say, I want to adduct faster than what gravity can offer, I don't want to use upward pullers. I want to use downward pullers, yanking my arms to my side. Make sense? So sometimes it's not awful, but there's functional reasons, functional tasks why an agonist would want to pull in the same direction as gravity or an external force. In class, I think I might have used the mosquito, right? Mosquitoes on my thigh, I don't want to be like, all right, flexors, eccentrically go. And I could say, all right, gravity do it. But if I want to try to get it, and I want to actually pull with something that's in the same direction of gravity for some functional reason. I'm not going to do 3 sets of 10. But if I'm just trying to get that mosquito one time, I'm going to use my elbow extensors through concentric contraction, even though gravity wants to extend. Make sense? Okay. So, scenario number 1. This adductors concentrically making my adduction happen faster than what gravity could do by itself. So it still fits our sentence, like adductors are going to make fast adduction. Okay. Abductors, concentric, adductors, concentric. The next part is what speeds up must slow down. You've already heard what goes up must come down. What speeds up must slow down. So if I speed up the adduction through concentric, my options to slow down that adduction really twofold. One is I can slap my legs and the collision will stop itself. I don't need muscles if I'm gonna, my right thigh stop my adduction and my left thigh stop my adduction. This is a class about muscles. So what if I had a bruise on my leg and I didn't want to slap? So if I speed up the adduction through concentric and I decide to put on the brake because of muscle contraction, that's what I want us to try to see right now. Start, finish, start, finish. The same muscles that sped me up by pulling down can't push me to a stop. Muscles can't push. So what's going to happen is when it comes time to get to the end of the runway, I'm going to turn these muscles off and I'm going to start tugging on these muscles to put on the brake. The abductors will slow down the adduction through eccentrics. Does that make sense? So if you were going to do like, 3 sets of 10 jumping jacks, if you were trying to go as fast as you can, you could let gravity slow down your arm and speed up your arm, but again, gravity is very limited. Gravity is a very weak force, you guys. It's persistent as heck, but it's not a very strong force. So speeding up the abduction, abductors concentric, But slowing down the abduction, I actually need adductors to yank on me and slow down the abductor eccentric. Continue to pull to speed up the adduction concentric. Turn off, abductor, slow down the adductor eccentric, change my direction, speed up the adductor concentric, and you just keep fluctuating between those two plyometric sequences. Okay. Let's do a more practical example. Has anybody ever seen the like flutter kicks and like flutter? It's fluctuation. So instead of legs, let's do hands. Let's do, I'm not saying this is a practical exercise, but let's say our hands are at our side flexed and we wanted to do this motion. Like when I go to a club, it's happening. It's true. So if I wanted to fluctuate, what are my two motions? Elbow flexion, elbow extension. Now gravity can extend me, but if gravity extends my elbow, that's what gravity can offer. So if I want to go faster than that, I need to use muscles that pull in the same direction. Okay. So open-ended conversation. I'm going to give you a couple minutes. What I would love for you to do is explain how my muscle agonists are speeding up my flexion, slowing down my flexion, speeding up my extension, slowing down my extension. Because if you think about it, that's all you're doing. You're just fluctuating between speeding up flexion, slowing down flexion. Because before I can extend, I have to put on the brake first. It doesn't happen magically. Everything takes time to speed up and slow down, even though our eyes may not be able to process it. Like our eyes can't see the slowing down, it has to happen. The only way to go from running this way to going running that way is to slow down here and then speed up there. Okay. So I'm telling you, the phases, and we'll just look at our right elbow. I mean, it's the same thing, but just right elbow. I'm going to be speeding up flexion, slowing down flexion, speeding up extension, slowing down extension, speeding up flexion, slowing down flexion, speeding up extension, slowing down extension. So I would like for you guys to assess. Let's start with, I'm going to abbreviate, speeding up flexion, slowing down flexion, speeding up extension, slowing down extension. Tell me the agonist and how the type of contraction that agonist would be working through in order to accomplish these phases. Speeding up, slowing down, speeding up, slowing down. So we'll start with speeding up. That'll be our first phase. Right elbow, you're just trying to go as fast as you can. Be awesome, like if during your finals, we like announced y'all like y'all were coming out for like a basketball game or something, you came in through the curtain. Now taking their final with a 76C, going for that B, Johnny Thibodeau. His parents are in the back.
Yeah. John, I need everybody, just random comments.
She wants to have class with the lights out. Give it up.
Oh my gosh, it just felt so different.
Probably felt mellow.
It did.
Are we good? Y'all need more time? I don't want to rush it. Who, what, when, where, why? You know, it's a game of clue. Who did it? How did they do it? Speeding up my flexion in this scenario would be elbow flexors through concentric contraction. Okay? The same muscles that sped me up cannot be responsible for slowing me down. Those muscles can't push me to a stop. So when it comes time to slowing down the flexion, those muscles that were agonists need to become antagonists. They need to turn off. So the flexors are going to turn off, and the extensors will now become my agonists to do the job of slowing down the flexion through eccentric. What's cool is that those muscles turning on can stay on a little longer because through plyometrics, they can slow down the flexion through eccentrics, continue to pull to speed up the extension through concentrics. And that would be the plyometric sequence of my extensors, putting on the brakes of flexion through eccentric, continuing to pull above resting tone to speed up the extension through concentric. What speeds up must slow down. So my flexors do concentric, sped up my flexion. My extensors do eccentric, slowed down my flexion. These muscles stayed on to speed up my extension. Elbow extensors, speeding up extension through concentrics. And again, if you say, well, Dr. Campbell, wouldn't gravity want to extend you? I'm like, absolutely. But can it extend me fast enough for what I'm trying to do? That's the key. Is that if I'm having fast extension, gravity can't do enough. So I need muscles that also pull in the direction of extension to make that extension go fast. Okay. So extensors through concentrics is going to speed up my extension. What speeds up must slow down. So slowing down the extension, my extensors are going to become antagonists. They're going to turn off. And then my flexors are going to turn on to slow down my extension through eccentric. And you're going to just repeat the same cycle. So the flexors are going to slow down the extension through eccentric, then speed up my flexion through concentric. It's just a cycle. If I'm just doing this over and over and over, it's just a cycle of different muscles alternating between agonist and antagonist to slow down motion, then speed up motion. And the other muscle group, slow down motion, speed up motion. It's like when you're sprinting or you're running, like it's just a sequence of flexors and extensors. Flexors are going to slow down extension, then speed up flexion. Then your extensors are going to slow down flexion and speed up extension. Then your flexors are going to slow down extension and speed up flexion. At your shoulder, your flexors are going to slow down extension and speed up flexion. And your extensors are going to slow down flexion and speed up extension. It's just going to be a cycle of these things happen.
Can you explain what plyometrics?
So plyometrics, practically speaking, or like we talked about it a couple weeks ago, like the root word of it. So you'll have like exercises for plyometric exercises, box jumps, whatever. But the root word of what it means is when an agonist slows down motion one way through eccentrics, changes your direction and speeds up motion the other way through concentrics. So you think about what's happening during a box jump. You jump down and you land on the ground, and your plantar flexors are going to slow down your dorsal through eccentric, change your direction, and speed up your plantar through concentric. So plyometrics, that's why it's full. It's not a separate type of contraction. You only have 3 types of contraction. You're going to win, lose, or tie. But a muscle can only do eccentric followed by concentric back to back. And the best analogy that I like to use is, and I think I used it in class before, but if I had a rope tied to the cart and I concentrically shorten the rope to pull the cart to me, that rope can't push it to a stop, right? So once I have concentric, something else has to slow that motion down. However, if the cart was rolling away from me and I pulled on that rope, I can slow the cart down away from me, change its direction, and speed the cart up back to me. That's plyometrics. Eccentric brake followed by concentric short. But then once I shorten, something else has to slow it down because the muscle can't do it itself. So plyometrics is specifically eccentric slowing down followed by concentric speeding up. Plyometrics is not the entire range of motion. It's not all the way eccentric followed by all the way concentric. It's just that part where you, and that's an important area to identify because that's where the most forces are being applied to the muscle. So muscle damage, delayed onset muscle soreness, your muscles at most risk of injury. I'll give y'all a practical example. I don't do it so much, but I love basketball, played basketball my whole life. And when I haven't shot in a while, where I'm sore isn't my extensors. It's not the speed up. Have you ever changed out the gas pedal in your car? No, it's the brakes that need replacing. Think about it, like when your brakes start squeaking, it takes more force to slow something down because when you're slowing it down, that's when things are getting frayed and pulled apart and popped and ripped, and that's where damage happens. So for me, if I haven't shot for a while, my soreness is actually in my flexors. Because that elbow extension has to slow down. And what my body doesn't want to do is slow it down because bone smacks against bone. Like you don't want your elbow extension to end because your olecranon smacked up against your humerus. So you're going to speed up the extension, but then once you release the ball, the flexors are going to put on the brake. Punters might pull a hamstring not because of the speed up part, but the slow down part. So they're moving their leg very fast, and what speeds up must slow down. What's going to slow down that flexion? The extensors through eccentrics. So a punter is using front muscles to speed up the foot, but the muscle that gets hurt is a muscle in the back, slowing it down. Pitcher, speed up, speed up, speed up, speed up. They may hurt something that's slowing them down. A posterior muscle or a rotator cuff. It's the braking muscles where the damage is. Okay. You shall not, just kidding, you shall pass. How about a couple more practical examples? Let's say we're working on a project and we have a hammer. Man, the MVP of class. Ken is just so versatile. Let's say Ken is a hammer. And you have the hammer head and the nail. And here's my scenarios, except instead of abductors, we're looking at flexors and extensors, right? So nail, all right.
thought experiment. Gravity, what can you do alone?
Gravity's like, this is what I got.
Might take me a while to get that nail into the tip, right? Flexors, what can you do?
Flexor's like, all right, I'll pull in the direction of flexion.
I can bring it up. But if I work to bring the head of the hammer to the nail, it's got to go slower than gravity. If I'm working eccentrically, I'm letting it down. So again, by process of elimination, if I'm trying to hit the hammer to the nail, my really only practical option is extensors concentrically to make the extension happen faster than what gravity can offer by itself. Does that make sense? I need to use extensors pulling down with gravity, because if gravity does it by itself, and the flexors can only do this, and the flexors can only do that. Does that make sense? So if I start here and I do this, that was right elbow extensors through concentrics.
So for the pictures on the test, are you gonna give us context like this? Like,
Oh, no, I'm just gonna have you guess. In fact, it's just gonna be a blank question, and I'm gonna be like, read my mind.
like for. That would be a rush.
Yeah, yeah, and but I would give you, first of all, it's a legit question, and honest, students, you want, but what I'm trying to show you is precedent. So far, the two tests that I've given, I've tried to communicate context. So what I wouldn't do is just give you a picture of a possessed Ken doll with his head spun around backwards with no context. So it would be you're hammering in a nail, and I would even probably have a picture, and I would give you the scenario. You're trying to hammer in the nail in one strike, like to really emphasize like you're trying to make it. What agonist and what contraction would help speed up that motion to bring the hammerhead to the nail as fast? I would give you that context. I have to. And I just can't say, what's that? So I would give you, and if by some means I have a bad day at the English department, then ask. And because what I can do is I can look at that question and say, oh gosh, you're right, I need to give you more context. Or I can look at it and say, it's worded exactly how there's enough information. You can ask those questions. Okay. We good? All right. Final scenario. Second to last scenario. We're still in MC hammering. Y'all have no idea who MC Hammer is. Stop hammer time? Yes. Dad jokes work again. Here's the scenario, guys. I think this is a great application of where we are. I have the hammer measured up to the nail. And then I do this. Now, did you see the serious face? One more time. What other professor uses Kindle? Like it's just so. You too can have must have stock in Kindle. Multi-purpose Kindle. Now, what I'm trying to make things simple. What happened? We had flexion followed by extension. Sure, but if we go down the rabbit hole a little bit more, I had to speed up the flexion. Then I had to slow down the flexion. Good. I'm going to change my direction. I'm going to speed up the extension. Slowing down the extension is going to actually happen when I hit the hammer. Right? I don't need muscles to put on the brake because, well, yes, but let's do it in phases. So what I'd like for you to tell me is What sped up the elbow flexion and how? What slowed down the elbow flexion and how? And then what sped up the elbow flexion, how? What slowed down the elbow flexion, how? And then what sped up the elbow extension and how? Because that's what happened in sequence. I sped up the flexion, who did it and how? I slowed down the flexion, who did it and how? I sped up the extension, who did it and how? I slowed down the extension, none, because the nail slowed down my extension. So just tell me three things. Elbow flexion, who sped it up and how? Who slowed down the elbow flexion? Who sped up my elbow extension? And then let's try to identify where the plyometric sequence happened. Where one agonist did two different things back to back while pulling in the same direction. Go. Good. All right, you guys, speeding up the elbow flexion. Elbow flexors concentric. That flexion's not going to happen on its own, right? Nothing's trying to make me flex. I got to use pullers to make it happen. The same muscles that sped me up can't push me to a stop. And if I turned everything off, gravity is like, dude, I could do it, but it's going to take me a little time. So speeding up the flexion, flexors do concentric, but when it comes time to putting on the brake, these muscles have to turn off. And my extensors are going to slow down the flexion through eccentrics, stay contracting above rest to change my direction and speed up my extension to concentric. That's my plyometric sequence. The extensor slowing down the flexion and then speeding up the extension. That's the only thing they can do back to back because they were responsible for it. Speeding up the extension, extensors concentric. And then again, if I hit the nail, I don't need any muscles to do. The collision of the hammer and the nail slow down my extension form. Where are my baseball, softball peeps at? Or anybody that just played? You ever notice when you were batting, if you whiffed on a pitch, it hurt more than if you actually made contact sometimes? You ever notice that? Like if you swung and missed, like, but if you make contact, because while you're making contact, that collision is starting to slow you down. It helps to slow you down. Your muscles don't have to use all that energy to slow down your motion. The collision actually helps slow it down. It's very simple. The collision itself helps slow you down. You didn't need muscles. But what if I decided at the last second that's not where I wanted that nail? Meaning, instead of whack, What if at the last second I was like, no, and I put on the brake? Nothing else changed. Flexors concentric, extensors eccentric, extensors concentric. But at the last second, if I changed my mind to not hit that nail, who could I recruit? And how must they be recruited to put on the brake and slow down that extension? Give it some thought. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just want everybody to kind of logically walk it through so that they can try to get the right answer. So practically speaking, what speeds up must slow down. We already sped up the extension, but now I need to slow down the extension without the collision. I need muscles to slow down my extension. I'm asking us to logically think if we can identify agonist and contraction for that task. Slowing down the extension before the hammer hits the nail. What we got? Flexors through eccentrics. Absolutely. And one of the side things I'm trying to teach you guys is that if you were, you wouldn't do this practically, but I think it makes the point. If you took a hammer and you did 100 reps of just stopping it, you can have some sore muscles the next day. And it's from the eccentrics. It's from the braking. Once again, your car never needs to replace the gas pedal. But after so many miles, you got to switch out the brakes. That's where the damage happens. How are we feeling about this concept? All right. How are we feeling about my batting form? True story. I was a really good, I hit for a very high average. It's just because I was just trying to chop it and play it and run as fast as first base. I was gritty. And Delvin would play with like an inflatable ball that was easy to hit. Delvin. All right, last one. I'm not going to give you any context other than showing you, and then you tell me what happened. Open-ended, okay? But on the test, I would have context, but I'm just trying to see if we could apply. Start. Concentrate. Start. Now, I could have done that, but I didn't. Start. Yeah, I want the shoulder motion.
He's emphasizing the shoulder motion.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I don't want this. I want this. Now that motion, I'm not telling you the answer, but I'm giving you context. It seems like it stopped instantaneously. But that's only because our eyes can only process so many frames per second. But we know through common sense, nothing stops instantaneously. Everything takes time. So if it was moving a certain way and it's no longer moving that way, it had to slow down. It had to be broken. I say it had to be broken. Brakes had to be applied. So I'm asking you to try to identify. I went from not moving to moving. Who did it, how, based off of the motion you observed. And then I went from moving to not moving again. And there was no collision. There was nothing that stopped me. My muscles had to stop me. Who did it? How? So instead of a ad conversation, we're having a horizontal ab and ad conversation. That makes sense? Go. We'll make sure we do a full review on Wednesday. All right, the answer is horizontal adductors through concentric contraction is going to speed up my horizontal adduction. But those same muscles can't slow me down. They can't push me to a stop. Those muscles have to turn off. And my horizontal abductors will be recruited as agonists to slow down my horizontal abduction through eccentrics. Good? All good? All right, you guys, I'm going to end class early just in case any students want to stay after. We can talk about clarifying some things. And my last request, can somebody please double check our plan just to make sure what we're seeing is what it is? Because again, I don't do online stuff, so I don't in that work. If we can get confirmation, whether it's through, if somebody, because I got to teach after this, somebody could go to Dr. Mayo, Mr. Chris, email the congressman. I don't know how we do this, but just confirm that that's okay. Send me an email or a message, and then I'll email out everybody that our test will be the Wednesday. Okay. All right, guys, y'all have a good one.